Those are some really good questions, generic grayish blue slide. Hi, I'm Reed, and today I'm going to be answering these questions about the XYZ affair. In the late 1700s, there was a ton going on in the Western world. The US declared independence from Britain, France had one of the bloodiest revolutions in history, so we can say that the world turned upside down. Anyway, in 1793, France went to war with Britain, and France wanted the US to help them because they were allies, but the US wanted to stay neutral in all conflicts because of its special new country status. But they sort of had to help because they're allies with France, because that's the Treaty of Alliance that was signed in 1778. It was still valid, so France was kind of irritated by this. Anyway, France wanted one of two things from the US. They either wanted the US to actually help them in the war, like actually going in and fighting Britain with them, or they could just pay back some of the debt that was built up during the Revolutionary War, because they helped them a lot in that, and there was a lot of debt built up, and they want the money back. Yeah, we didn't do that. Anyway, so instead of getting us to give them the money, by asking more, in 1796 they legalized their ships, specifically privateers, that's a privateer right there, to attack US merchant ships. They legalized that so they could take the money and use the money in the war, because the US didn't pay them the money, and they need money. Also, in 1794, the US and Britain signed a treaty called the Jay Treaty, which was, it basically just ended all the disagreements and stuff that happened between the Revolutionary War and 1794. And France didn't like it because they saw it as a threat to their alliance. In 1797, John Adams was elected the President of the United States. He was a Federalist. That's going to be important in a bit. At the time, France and the US had a downward spiral relationship, a relationship that was going in a downward spiral. That's what this is. A downward spiral. And also, a lot of people in the US wanted war with France, specifically the Federalists, John Adams' own party. He did not want war. So, to prevent this, he sent 3 envoys to France: Elbert Gerry, Charles Cotesworth Pinckney, and John Marshall. Anyway, the American envoys made their way over to France to hopefully negotiate with Marquis de Talleyrand. He was France's foreign minister. He basically handled all the foreign stuff. He was the minister of all of that. The American envoys were met with 4 French intermediaries. Those names were, I forgot the time. Nicholas Hubbard, Pierre Bellamy, Jean Huntingler, and Lucien Audubon. Anyway, since they weren't Talleyrand, something was up, and they basically they all met with them on different occasions, just demanding the same thing. They wanted the US to pay a low interest loan to France, they wanted them to pay all the American merchant claims against the French, and they wanted them to pay Talleyrand a massive bribe. And you know what the American envoy said? No. And you know what the French intermediary said? Something in French. I don't know French yet. Anyway, as soon as they were done with those little negotiations that failed, they wrote back to the US explaining everything. At first, Adams was pretty hesitant about releasing the details of the events to the public because there's already a lot of pressure growing to declare war and just start hating France, which they already kind of did. But Adams ended up getting pressured into releasing the notes by Congress. It's not peer pressure, they're just pressuring their peer. Anyway, so when he released the details of the events, he replaced the French intermediaries' names with the letters W, X, Y, and Z. It's called the XYZ affair because they were called XYZ. Makes sense, doesn't it? Pretty soon, millions for defense, not 1 cent for tribute became a popular anti-French saying in the US. And also, more people wanted war, so they pressured Adams into making lots and lots of preparations for war, though it was never actually declared. So instead of actually declaring war and needing to fight a real war, there were just a few naval battles in the Caribbean. In 1797, there was an act that was made to provide some U.S. ships, specifically the Constitution, the United States. Yes, there's a ship called the United States, and the Constellation with money and equipment. Gotta be honest, not much else happened. There were like 2 major battles, both including this guy named Thomas Truxtun, who was an ex-privateer. That ship, that's a privateer from 4, remember that? And most Federalists did want war. Adams' own party, he didn't want war. And actually, Britain was on U.S. side for this one. They wanted to help the U.S. in case they needed to declare war. And finally, after almost 2 years of fighting, peace was established during the Convention of 1800. The U.S. ended their alliance with France, and they would actually not have another one until the World Wars. Napoleon Bonaparte also came to power in France at about this time. A lot has changed. In 1798, the Alien Sedition Acts were made, which basically upped the requirement for U.S. citizenship, from living in the U.S. from 4 years up to 15 years, which is a big gap. And they also allowed the U.S. government to deport or arrest any person from a nation they're at war with during wartime. It's still an act today. Though this became effective in most states, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison said, "No, that's mean," and they wrote against it, creating the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, which basically nullified those things in those states. Another thing that happened as a result of the XYZ affair and the quasi-war was the establishment of the Department of the Navy and the Marine Corps. It basically gave those 2 branches semi-independence during peacetime and continued giving branches of the military kind of independence because George Washington, he made the War Department during his presidency. Another big thing is that right after France and the US ended the quasi-war by signing the Treaty of Mortefontaine, Napoleon signed the Treaty of Ildefonso with Spain, which gave them back their former territory, now territory. They would lose their territory of Louisiana. And also, in the US, political divides were growing even stronger. Federalists started hating Democratic Republicans even more. Kind of like how Democrats hate Republicans, Republicans hate Democrats. It's all the same. When Adams ran for a second term, the election of 1800, he actually lost because the general population kind of hated the way that he handled everything with the XYZ affair and the quasi-war. And the media also was really critical of everything and really biased, kind of like today. These are my sources! The XYZ affair surely isn't any Revolutionary War or Ellis Island or Industrial Revolution, but it did kind of establish a base point for everything in the future to jump off of. Diplomatic relations, politics, war. It also established the US on the world stage as a very powerful nation for the first time. He became a force not to be reckoned with, one not to ask for bribes, and one to be respected. I'm Reed, you're you, give me an A please.